YouTube, welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we've got a brand new video for you. Today we are actually going to be going through the Marvel Cinematic Universe and tearing out the MCU movies in the order that we like them and think that they belong in. A lot of people, including myself, have grown up on these movies and been watching them for a long time, as well as the new TV shows out on Disney Plus and everything like that. I've grown up on the comics, I've grown up playing the games, everything involving Marvel I've always been in love with. So this is a tier list that I'm very excited to share with you and very excited to see what your opinions are about it as well. That being said, if you disagree or agree with any of these rankings or anything, make sure to drop a comment down below and let me know. On top of that, if you do enjoy the content, please make sure to drop a like on the video, as well as hit a sub button to the channel and turn that notification bell on so you don't miss any future videos. If you want to get more involved with the channel, I do live stream over on twitch.tv/MaxGermany. I'd love to have you over there hanging out in the chat and everything like that and kind of giving your live opinions on some of these things, or want to even come play some games with us and hang out with the community in that way. That being said, we're going to conclude this intro, so make sure you drop your comment down below and let me know what you think of this tier list, whether you agree or disagree with it. Either way, though, let's get it and let's go. Marvel movie tier list time. We're going in chronological order, so order of the movies of which they came out, though, rather than the order that they actually go in for the movies. First one that came out, first MCU movie, the one that started it all, was Iron Man, the very first original with Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man is going to be the one that kicked off the entire MCU universe. It is going to be the OG movie of them all. It is still one of the most rewatchable ones, in my opinion, that you can sit down. It could be on TV. You can just pull it up and watch it, and you will enjoy it every time, whether it is the soundtrack to the movie, which is arguably the best soundtrack in all of the movies, or just the way it plays out and everything. I mean, you take a rich playboy weapons arm dealer in Tony Stark and just his story and everything like that, and you turn him into essentially a riddled man dying and everything, and has to be revived by his own technology, finds out what all his weapons and arms and stuff like that are all really doing and how they're affecting the world, and flips his own switch and ends up becoming Iron Man from it. But like I said, it has one of the best soundtracks in the entire universe, in my opinion. It's the OG movie of them all. I don't think you can really put this movie anywhere but the S tier when it comes to MCU movies. It's just where it belongs. It's one of the most rewatchable ones, like I mentioned, and it is a top-notch MCU movie. It is what you want in a movie out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It is still one of the top movies to this day. We're going to rank these in order. So it might be an S tier, it might be an A tier, B tier, but these are going to end up going 1 through 23. And then I'll tell you where Black Widow will go, since Black Widow isn't actually on here to be able to place down. Next up in the order of movies that came out is going to be The Incredible Hulk. So this is actually going to be the Incredible Hulk movie that came out in 2008 that featured our man Edward Norton. I want to say RIP, but obviously he's still alive, but RIP to Edward Norton as the Incredible Hulk. I feel like he honestly got a lot of hate in this movie compared to what it could have been. I enjoyed the movie probably more than most. I don't know if this really deserves the hate it got, to be honest. Like, I thought it was good. It has Abomination in it. I was hyped during the Hulk Abomination fight. It was action packed. It had a good little storyline to it. I'd always hoped there would be a second one, as they set up for kind of that sequel and everything, and it just never happened. It never turned out to be what people wanted it to be. I think I'm just going to put it in the C tier. I don't think it's a D tier. Like I said, I don't really think any of these movies are D tier worthy, except for one on this entire list, and that is why Hulk is going to go in C tier. I don't think it deserves all the hate that it gets. Next one that ended up coming out in theaters was in 2010. So you had Iron Man and Incredible Hulk coming out on May 2nd, 2008 and June 13th, 2008, so a little over a month apart. And so on May 7th of 2010, you got Iron Man 2. And I mean, it was another good movie with a good soundtrack. It wasn't my favorite by any means. It wasn't something I particularly necessarily enjoyed. It did introduce Black Widow and Scarlett Johansson to the MCU, or it introduced her more so as Black Widow. Like I said, I wasn't really big on that movie. I don't like the guy that plays Justin Hammer that much. I like the other dude a lot, but it's not one that I rewatch a lot. Whenever I go back and watch MCU movies, I almost want to skip that one. So Iron Man 2 to me, I feel like is still a C tier movie, obviously above the Hulk, but I still don't think it's a great movie. I didn't really enjoy it that much. It does kind of introduce War Machine and stuff like that. You can give it its respects for that, but overall, I just didn't like the story. I didn't like the villains in it. That was really bad. And the electric whips are very beastly in that movie, but they're only shown in that first fight, and then he's done with them. He doesn't use them the rest of the time, and that's just kind of where it ends at. Next movie they came out with was the original Thor. The original Thor, I go back and forth on. And I think everybody went back and forth on Thor. Great superhero, great powers, but I mean, the dude is straight disrespected in his first two movies. Like Ragnarok, as everybody knows, Ragnarok is, I'll go ahead and say it's a top tier movie. His other movies, not as much. Thor 1 can be a little bit of a drag. It's honestly more carried by Tom Hiddleston, I feel like, than it is by Chris Hemsworth. And I mean, that's just kind of the gist of it. Like, I don't really enjoy the first Thor that much. And I don't know a lot of people that really do. Like I said, you put the respect on it and stuff like that and what it is. You put the respect on Loki as Tom Hiddleston and everything as well. But like the end in the little bitty town, like in the middle of nowhere with the big laser beaming dude and stuff like that. Like I'm not really big on the other Asgardians that are fighting with him as well. And like I probably will disrespect it a little bit. The original Thor is more of a leaner towards C tier to B tier. I'm gonna put it in the B tier for now. It's probably gonna be more in the bottom B tier. I like it better than Iron Man 2. Mainly just because of Tom Hiddleston and stuff as the villain and kind of as playing a big role in the movie. But I don't really like Chris Hemsworth in it. And I don't want to put it in the C, but it'll probably end up being lower B tier by the end of this. Captain America, the first Avenger, July 22nd, 2011. So 2 months after Thor dropped, Captain America, the first Avenger came out. This, I think, sits on the same level for Thor as me. I'll go ahead and say I feel like it is a B tier movie. I feel like it is slightly better than Thor. And I don't even like Captain America, is my thing. Like, I like Thor as a superhero better than Captain America, but I love the Red Skull in this movie. And I love more of the story of the Captain America movie rather than the Thor movie. I think it's just because he's super cheesy and he's like a little goofball. And I don't know. Like, Thor is much more my kind of superhero, but Captain America, I like his villain better and stuff. I love the Red Skull not really compared to Tom Hiddleston, but Tom Hiddleston more so gets his rank in the Avengers as the true big power showing villain and stuff like that as well. Next up on your list is the first Avengers movie. So you have gotten Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, and then Captain America. And then you get your first Avengers movie. So this is the one where Loki is the main villain, sends his aliens down to Earth and everything, trying to take over, trying to be the ruler of Earth. You still have the iconic movie scene. I mean, this was an action-packed movie with its quirks and stuff, with Tom Hiddleston doing his thing here. And it's honestly wild how like cheesy these movies look now with CGI and everything like that. So like rewatchability can kind of take a hurting.
Enough! You are all of you beneath me. I am a god, you dull creature, and I will not be bullied by that.
And there you go, everybody's favorite scene.
Puny god.
Everybody's favorite scene. Everybody loves it. Like I said, I go back and forth on it in terms of rewatchability, and I think it's solely because of the CGI and how much is needed in that movie. I feel like it's not an S tier to me. There's very few S tier because I want to rank these out. My S tier will only be my top 3, top 5, and Avengers 1 is not in that top 3 to top 5. With that said, though, I'll put it in the A tier. It might end up kind of getting bumped a little bit downwards towards the A tier and stuff, but it's going to be an A tier movie for me. It is the big one that started it all with the Avengers, but it's definitely not the best one out of them all. It's definitely not the most rewatchable movie in this universe or even really up there with those. So Iron Man 3 is going to be a little different. It is going to be with, I guess his name was Killian. And Killian was one of the guys. He ends up being the main villain, ends up getting like almost like genetically enhanced superpowers and stuff like that. But it is going to be where you see Pepper Potts get to be her badass self finally. And she ends up getting those powers herself for a minute at the end of the movie and everything. You get to see all of the Iron Man suits all fighting together and all of that and kind of what Tony Stark is truly capable of. I still don't think it's a great movie. But it's definitely not the worst movie on this list, and it's still not even like, I still enjoy it. I like it better than Iron Man 2, I will say for sure, and I think it's because Gwyneth Paltrow, Pepper Potts, is introduced more in this movie. She has a bigger role in this movie, and I really like her character and stuff like that with Iron Man 3. So Iron Man 3 to me is honestly going to go, I'm going to put it between Captain America and Thor for me. Next up on the list is Thor Dark World. I really have nothing to say about this movie, except this is our one and only D-tier MCU movie. It's probably the only one that you could think of whenever I sat here and said there is a D-tier MCU movie, and one that I would put below the rest. I don't even mind the story that much, necessarily. I like that they introduce kind of Loki's background and everything. I hate everything else about this movie, though. It is awful. It is their worst work that they have done. They know it's the worst work they've done. It's the lowest rated movie they have out of all of them. And that's where it deserves the D tier. And it's the only one that is going to sit on that D tier. It is going to be ranked 23 or 24 out of 24 on this list. And that's just where it belongs. Next up on the list is Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Captain America Winter Soldier, one of my all-time favorite movies, one of the best movies. You get introduced to Bucky Barnes, or not introduced to Bucky Barnes, you get introduced to Bucky Barnes as the Winter Soldier. I mean, it's in my top 5. I can tell you that much. Captain America Winter Soldier, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, and I may even switch it up while we're going through here and I'm reminiscing on movies, Captain America Winter Soldier is in my top 5. It is one of the more action-packed movies in the series. I, and probably everybody else, loves Bucky Barnes as the Winter Soldier and his story and his coming around story and all of that stuff. Could end up possibly getting bumped down to A tier, like I said, once I kind of talk myself through some more of these. But for now, this is exactly where it belongs, is in this S tier. Guardians of the Galaxy. I said Iron Man might have the best soundtrack on this entire list, but Guardians probably is really that one with the best soundtrack in the entire list. I own the CD. I mean, it's just a through and through true MCU movie. Out there with the comedy, the action to it, out there with the music. Like, I mean, it covers all of the bases. And Guardians of the Galaxy, to me, is going to be above the original Avengers, really, and is going to be in that A tier. It might end up moving up to S tier. Like I said, I'm kind of walking through this list to remember exactly what my top 5 is. But it's actually going to be above the Avengers for me. I've rewatched this movie so many times. I love all of the characters. I love all of the people in the movie. I love everybody and how they fit their roles and who plays who and stuff. The soundtrack, the comedy of it, everything about it is just a wholesome Marvel MCU movie that you want. Next up is Avengers Age of Ultron. And this is one that I feel like a lot of people give more hate than it deserves, to be honest. And it might just be because I'm a huge James Spader guy, who is the voice of Ultron. I love his voice acting and everything like that throughout this movie. I love the story. I love getting introduced to Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. You get introduced to a lot of characters. I might catch flack for it. I feel like a lot of people don't agree with this from what I've talked to and stuff like that. I enjoy Avengers more than I do. I enjoy Avengers 2 more than I enjoy Avengers 1. And it's not a knock on Tom Hiddleston. It's not any of that. I feel like it's honestly just like I said before, it's the rewatchability. The Avengers 1 CGI and stuff, and it was so CGI dependent that it makes it very hard to rewatch at times now. Whereas on the flip side, Avengers 2, Age of Ultron is a little bit newer. I mean, that's what leads to Vision as well. I mean, it's a big time movie that introduces a lot of big time characters for the entire universe. Up on the list, after Age of Ultron, you got introduced to Ant-Man, which is going to be your last movie of Phase 2. I loved Ant-Man. Paul Rudd is absolute comedy in this movie. It reminds me of Guardians of the Galaxy. It doesn't have the soundtrack of Guardians of the Galaxy, of course, but it reminds me of Guardians of the Galaxy in a way, and it's just pure comedy through and through on this movie. And I mean, it has enough action to it. It has enough tricks up its sleeve, I guess you could say. It's not even like I knew a lot about Ant-Man before, but I think it's just the Paul Rudd casting in itself is like the perfect casting for what you could want. Him as Ant-Man makes the entire movie. It makes the entire character. It makes you love that character, who is probably a very hard character to try and love. Ant-Man, to me, as of right now, is going to be the top of the B tier, to be honest. I like it better than Captain America. These are very big movies to put it over top of, but I think it's just the comedy aspect of it. And he's so much easier by this time to love more than... Like, Steve kind of becomes more of a badass in Winter Soldier. But at this time, I mean, he's still better than Thor's character at the time. Not necessarily better than Iron Man, but he's better than that Iron Man 3 movie and stuff. And yeah, it's the top of the B tier for me. It's where it belongs. Next up on the list, though, is Civil War. Of course, it started Phase 3 for us. So Civil War is also going to introduce us to Black Panther. It's going to introduce us to Spider-Man and Tom Holland. Civil War is a great movie. It has its comedy to it. It's a little long, but I mean, it's just one of the longer MCU movies. I feel like is probably why it felt that way. But one of the most badass scenes in the entire movie is Iron Man fighting Steve and Bucky and just going all out at them. It definitely definitely kind of builds up to more of the movie. It has its hype moments in the movie. The fight scenes in it are amazing. The story of it can drag on, and that's where you get conflicted with this movie. It still has its jokes, it still has its lightheartedness and stuff. I think Civil War, I could completely move this by the end of this list. Like I said, I'm kind of talking myself through it. In all honesty, for right now, I think it's going to be an A tier. And I mean, I liked it better than the first two Avengers movie, and I think that's because of the fight scenes. Next up on the list, like I said, of what came out was Doctor Strange. So Doctor Strange, I enjoy Doctor Strange. It doesn't have as much comedy as some of the others, but I'm fine with that. I don't really need the comedy. The comedy helps movies. It never hurts them. It can be a little slow at times. I'm not huge on the villains in Doctor Strange, but I love Doctor Strange's story. I love his powers. Benedict Cumberbatch is absolutely amazing as Doctor Strange. On top of that, honestly, I feel like Doctor Strange is probably right below Civil War for me. I just love the multiverse and everything like that. I just didn't like the villain, not Mordo in the movie, the other, like the smaller villain in the movie. I wasn't huge on, I guess, and stuff like that. But I find his world, the multiverse, and all of that just absolutely fascinating to sit there and watch and them to do and everything. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And I may get some hate for this. I don't know how most people really feel about Guardians of the Galaxy 2, to be honest. I wasn't big on it, to be quite frank. I mean, it of course had all the great characters. It tried the comedy stuff. I didn't find it that great compared to the first one, and that might be why. It might just be it's the fact that it is a disappointment compared to the first one more than anything. And that may be the biggest issue that I have with it. I mean, I didn't like the villain. Yondu is the bright spot in this movie. Ego just isn't it. And like, it's cool to get the storyline behind Star-Lord and stuff like that and kind of be introduced to everything like that. But overall, I just wasn't big on it. I think to me, it's the lowest of the B tier probably so far. Next on the list in order of coming out was Spider-Man Homecoming. So your full introduction to Tom Holland. I enjoyed this movie. I don't know how much I like watching this movie, I guess you could say. Solely because I really wasn't big on Vulture. And I mean, I enjoyed it when it came out. It was entertaining and it had funny. It was solid. It just wasn't great. It wasn't something I really cared to go out and watch again. I don't think it really should be here. And Spider-Man Homecoming, I think, is the top of the C tier for us. It's just not great. It does have some good aspects to it. Like I said, it tries to be too funny in a way, though. Introduces you to Spider-Man. But at the same time, while Tom Holland is your best overall Spider-Man, he's not overall, I say, in regards to Peter Parker and Spider-Man at the same time. Andrew Garfield is your, my opinion, best Spider-Man, just the superhero. Tobey Maguire is Peter Parker. Next up on the list in order of coming out was Thor Ragnarok, and there's only one place to put Thor Ragnarok. And this movie is absolutely fantastic. It is hilarious. It has great humor. It is where you finally get to love Thor and you get everything that Thor has deserved. I mean, the original Thor came out in 2011. Thor Ragnarok came out in 2017, and that man came through, crushed the role. They finally let him do what he wanted to do as Thor and have fun with Thor. And he absolutely murdered the entire scene. And Thor Ragnarok is the top of our S tier at the moment. Yeah, it is one of the most rewatchable MCU movies that you can sit down and just have a good laugh at, have a good time watching. And that's all there is to say. It's the top of the S tier at the moment. Next up on the list is going to be Black Panther, which came out in the beginning of 2018. So Black Panther, Chadwick Boseman, you get introduced to Wakanda, one of the most iconic characters and one of the most iconic worlds, or I guess countries per se, in the entire MCU. You kind of get more of his story and kind of the backlash after Civil War and stuff. And I mean, Black Panther is a great movie to me, and I'm just trying to decide where I think I want to put it. I love the culture within the movie and stuff like that, and kind of almost learning about their culture, learning about Wakanda. It's like you feel like you're really learning and watching it and kind of being introduced to an entire universe because it is so different. I enjoy the fight scenes in the beginning, fight scenes at the end, and I mean, it's A tier to me, to be honest. Honestly, like it better than, on rewatchability, I like it better than the first Avengers. And it's honestly kind of between these two spots. I don't like it better than Doctor Strange, just because I like Doctor Strange as a character better. And I think I'll put it between the two Avengers. When it came out, it was a very great movie. Rewatchability kind of brings it down a little bit, but it's more rewatchable than the original Avengers. I just like the Avengers storyline better than the Black Panther storyline. Next up on the list is going to be Avengers Infinity War. The most iconic ending to a movie that you can ever have in the longest year of my life, waiting between Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. I mean, you had April 27th of 2018. I was there. I was in the theater, the first showing, and it got to the credit scene, and you just look around, you just don't know what happened. The whole place is completely quiet. A great movie, to be honest. When I'm sitting here looking at what's left on here, it's in my top 5, and yeah, that's what would put it. So I'm putting S tier as my top 5 movies. So it is in the bottom of my S tier at the moment when Avengers Infinity War came out. Actually, it's above Iron Man 1. And that's solely because of Thanos. I'm not really big on the villain in Iron Man 1 necessarily. I love Iron Man and I love the story of Iron Man 1. But I'm not big on that villain. And Thanos just rocks the whole... Like, you learn the absolute power of Thanos in Infinity War. You learn exactly what this man is capable of, how much, like, he has been built up for damn near 10 years, or 10 years, over 10 years. I don't remember what his first end credit scene was, but the man has been built up for 10 years, and he comes to conclusion, and you get exactly what you deserve in that character. And I mean, he comes through and just does his thing. He just shows up, and he's just annihilating everybody and everything in his path. He does exactly what he wants to do. Wipes half the universe. I mean, the ending of it in the movie theater was the most heart-wrenching. Like, I have to literally go home and process what just happened. Next up on the list is going to be Ant-Man and the... Actually, no, wait. Yeah, Ant-Man and the Wasp. In all honesty, I like this movie. I don't find it as good as the first one. It's a matter of where I want to put it at. I love the chick in the movie. I love her being more involved and everything like that. I don't like the story of the movie at all. It's not enjoyable that much. I think it is C tier. I will agree with that. I think it's probably right below Spider-Man, in all honesty. I think it's above Iron Man 2, and that's just solely because of Paul Rudd. But I don't think it's as good as Spider-Man 1. Next on the list is Captain Marvel. I loved Captain Marvel when it came out. People give it a lot of hate to her, to Brie Larson and stuff like that. I've rewatched this movie probably 5+ times. It's a matter of where I want to put it, and I think I know where I want to put it, and that is probably right below Ant-Man. I like her better than Ant-Man, considering, especially, I mean, she's one of the most powerful people in the MCU. I like her better than Ant-Man. The movie's not better than Ant-Man, but the character I like a lot better, and I love Brie Larson. I love how she portrays that character and stuff, and that's just kind of where I'll put her for me. Next up on the list in order, it was actually Avengers Endgame. It goes in one spot, and that's the top. I've never cried in a movie before, and I cried in this movie because I got to hear Avengers assemble and watch everybody come out of a portal and back to life. And literally every time I watch this movie and that happens, I get chills throughout my entire body and tears flow into my eyeballs, and I can't help it. No matter how many, I've rewatched this movie 15+ times, and it happens every time. And that scene alone just puts it on top of everything I could ask for. And that end fight scene, they literally do it so perfectly with that end fight scene, and the fact that you get the Guardians, you get the original Avengers partying in the fight scene, you get all of the women of the MCU with Valkyrie and Pepper Potts and Nebula and Gamora, and like everybody is in there. No movie gets me feeling like this way, but it can be a little bit of a drag in the beginning of the movie. And that's where this top 5 flips so much for me. I mean, it honestly probably just depends on the mood I'm in, and that's the great part about these movies. That's just the thing. The top 5 for me are they can just have such a recency bias to them and a mood bias to them on how I'm feeling. And the final one on this list of ones that we can tier is Spider-Man Far From Home. I like this one, honestly. I like it a lot better than the first one, and I think it's because of Jake Gyllenhaal. Spider-Man Far From Home, for me, probably sits right below Captain America. I like it better than Iron Man 3. I think it's just because of Jake Gyllenhaal that I like Spider-Man 2 so much. And people might hate that. People might love that. I don't know, but I feel like it's just an easy B tier for me. It's better than the first one. And then it's better on the same page of Iron Man 3. But it's not better than Captain America to me. And then I'm not going to talk about this movie because I don't know who's seen it, who hasn't. I'm only going to say where I would put it. And that is the newly released Marvel movie Black Widow. You know the characters. If you've seen the trailer and stuff, you know who all is in it. It has some very, very funny moments. It is action-packed throughout the movie. Pretty much 90 80 to 90% of the movie is pure just action back and forth. The Black Widow movie, to me, in regards to where I would rate it, it's probably right above Captain America. It probably splits Captain Marvel and Captain America for me. And I think that's because I like Captain Marvel and Brie Larson better than I do Scarlett Johansson, to be honest. It is a great storyline. They do a really good job with it. I can't wait to see how it plays out after the end credit scene and everything they do. So make sure you watch through the end credits. And that is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, all phases tier list. That's really about it. Marvel movie tier list. There you go. There it is. That's the final word.